a 2004 Land Rover Freelander, and I am not Doug DeMuro. But what I can tell you is I am an idiot because I spent $950 on this car knowing it had a bad head gasket, not doing my research on how easy it is to fix, what it's like to live with. I kind of just jumped into it, which wasn't the right idea, but look, about 11 months after I purchased this beautiful red beast, it is now in working condition. It is probably the only working Freelander in my immediate area, maybe even the state of Utah. I haven't seen another one of these since late 2019, I think. This is the only one that I've seen running outside the junkyard. And let me tell you, it was not worth it. Better just to buy a Discovery, but it's working now and I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. That's all I can say right now. Let's talk about what the Freelander is. The Freelander is Land Rover's first entry-level model, and it's also their first model that used a monocoque chassis. It was featured in Camel Trophy in 1998, but by then, Camel Trophy was more about biking and mountaineering and skiing, and it was more about just sports and stuff like that than it was about the cars, and that was Land Rover's last year as a Camel Trophy host. But they did use the Freelander. It was the TD4 diesel model with the 5-speed manual transmission, which this one is not. This one is an American example, obviously, and in America they only sold these with the Rover K-Series V6 engine, which was also in the Rover 75 and the MG ZT, I think. I don't know much about MGs because, you know, I didn't really sell them here anymore. These are really, really common in Europe because they sold the TD4, the 4-cylinder Rover engine. The diesel was a BMW sourced engine, I believe. But we only got the V6 here, and the V6 was prone to head gasket problems, and they're also really complicated, really hard to fix. So when the head gasket goes, people generally don't really feel like fixing it, so that's why I never see these things around anymore, which is cool because I get that extra exclusivity when I'm driving around. I know that I'm probably the only Freelander in Utah that's actually driving on the road somewhere. And I see other people in Land Rovers, and I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if that guy is driving up the road going, holy smokes, a Freelander, because I know I would, because I'm a dork. It is kind of sad knowing that this is probably one of the last ones, and even though I bought it for less than $1,000, it's probably the nicest one in the state. The paint looks really good everywhere but the roof. The roof looks terrible. It's all covered in dents from hailstorms, and it's all faded. There's a bit of fading here on the bumper, but it's not really that bad. I mean, I think Doug DeMuro would review this. If I emailed him, he'd be like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna come out from San Diego where it's warm, and I'm gonna come to Utah where it's cold, just so I can review your free. That's not gonna happen. The V6 in this first generation American spec Freelander is probably one of the worst engines ever made, if you ask me. I don't really see any benefit to it. I mean, it makes 174 horsepower, which wasn't even that great even back in 2004. It's not very reliable. In fact, let me take that back. It's actually terribly unreliable. It's really complicated. Like I said in a previous video, it has 3 timing belts. This engine, combined with a couple other reliability problems, like falling off prop shafts down under here, which I've heard about but hasn't affected this car. Somebody saw my post in the Hoovies Garage Facebook group about this car, and they showed me that a reliability survey gave this car a 0 out of 100 on reliability. But despite the reputation poor reputation and unreliability that afflicted these Freelanders, especially in the USA, the Freelander actually did get into a second generation. They called it the Freelander 2 over in Europe, but over here they called it the LR2. Probably because the original Freelander had such a bad reputation that they knew they couldn't sell it under the Freelander name anymore. The Freelander 2 would eventually die off in 2015 and give way to the Discovery Sport, which is Land Rover's current entry model. So it has its roots in this original Freelander. We got very close to giving up on this. It was very hard to work on, and it took months for us to get this thing fixed, but it is here. And all the dead Freelander ones, they all live on in the Discovery Sport and the LR2/Freelander 2. So it was an important car for Land Rover, that's for sure. This is the kind of thing that really sells well in today's market, small SUVs like this. So this is kind of the start of Land Rover's part in a huge market right now. We had to put in a new cylinder head, new timing belts, new head gaskets. We did a wheel bearing back here because it was really loud driving down the road. I'm not sure if it was worth all the weight and the frustration it caused me and my dad and the money I spent on it. I would personally recommend going out and buying a Discovery with a bad head gasket because they're easier to work on, they're better off-road, they look better, they're more practical. When people recognize what this car is, they usually give off two different reactions. It's either, wow, you're stupid, or wow, you're brave. But it's here, it's red, and it's beautiful. So let's show you around a little bit. Standing back and looking at this car, I have to say I do like how it looks. It really shows off the mini Discovery vibe. You can see it has things such as the back raised up here like it is in a Discovery. It's got the plastic flared wheel arches. It's got the spare tire on the back and the door that opens as a door back, not a hatchback. I'd say it's a pretty good looking SUV. From some angles it looks really good, from some angles it looks kind of stubby. But overall I like it, especially the facelift model like this one. Pre-facelift model is too plasticky looking and the interior isn't very nice. This one isn't perfect, but from certain angles it does look pretty good. Inside my Freelander you will find typical HSE spec spotted beige leather, the two-tone steering wheel, and just generally a rugged look throughout the whole cabin, I would say. Moving it to the back, there's enough room for 3 adults to sit somewhat comfortably. Like a Discovery, it has storage nets up there. Here's something that's interesting, is this fuel door. You actually have to use the key, put the key in, turn it, pull it out, and there it is. Kind of weird, but not extraordinarily weird. It still works as a fuel cap. So now that I've told you about the Freelander a little bit and also told you about the troublesome journey it was to get this thing running, let's take a drive, shall we? Here we are in the inside of Rupert, my Freelander. Sometimes it takes a second. Let's go for a drive. Looking at the gauge cluster, I see the 3 amigos are on, the traction control light, the ABS light, and the hill descent control light, which is no big deal or anything. Doesn't stop the car from being drivable. It is keeping temperature just fine. Whew, it's hot in here. It's actually a beautiful day today. It's usually early March in Utah and is filled with snow and cold and misery. But here we are driving along in my Freelander. First thing you notice when you start driving this thing is that even though it looks really small from the outside, you still sit pretty high up. I feel cool driving this thing, I'll admit. I do feel kind of cool driving it, which I probably don't look cool, but you know, it feels cool driving this thing. I like being so high up, and I don't know, there's just something about the inside of this car and driving it that, I don't know, that it just really feels good. Yeah, I don't like driving it as much as I like driving a Discovery. It doesn't have low range, it doesn't have locking differentials. It does have hill descent control, which I believe is probably not working anymore. It was working before we did the wheel bearing, but now it isn't. Truthfully, this car has been running for about a month and a half, 2 months. But I've just been driving it along with this broken wheel bearing, and it's just way too loud to film the video in here. Here comes some cyclists taking up half the road, not wearing their helmets. I do really like driving this car around. I've found I've been driving it a lot more than my BMW. It's just easier to drive, especially with an automatic. You just put it in drive and forget about it. It's nice. Oh, we have a bit of a gravel road, don't we? Try a little bit of off-roading. Not really, but you know, it's sort of off-roading. It feels like off-roading. Yeah. Fantastic. But like I said, I do enjoy driving this car. There's not really much to say. It doesn't handle very well. It's fast enough. Just generally an okay car to drive, but I do enjoy driving it. It's nice. Even though it's a smaller car, it feels like I'm driving a Land Rover. And that's really all that matters. It does need a few more things, but every Land Rover needs a few more things. So it's finally running, and I'll be making more updates on it. Next update video will be on my BMW. So let me know if you want me to do anything, if you have any ideas for what I should do with my Freelander, or any videos I should do, or what I should talk about. If you have any questions, just comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.